This is Fantasy Football Today on CBSSports.com.
It's never a good thing when you're missing guys like Peyton Manning, Marshawn Lynch, A.J. Green, and Julius Thomas, but you know what? We'll help you find some good replacement options for your starting lineup. Welcome to an exclusive edition of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. I'm Jamie Eisberg. This is Dave Richard. Dave, we're missing a lot of guys this week. Who are some of the teams that are on bye this week?
You got the Cardinals, the Bengals, the Browns. I don't know how many Browns we're really going to feel bad about being without. The Seahawks, the Rams, and those Denver Broncos, which means no Peyton Manning. But the 49ers are going to play this week, and they've got a guy that you love at quarterback.
Yes, I'm replacing Brian Hoyer this week with Colin Kaepernick. You're going to see Colin Kaepernick as our start of the week on CBSSports.com. Should have a great game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Chad Henne, 2 touchdowns. Andrew Luck, 3 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins still throwing touchdowns against the Eagles, not against the Giants. But Kirk Cousins had a good game against this Eagles defense as well. Colin Kaepernick, 20 fantasy points in 2 of 3 games so far this year, but they need a big game from him this week. I think he gets it. He's a top 10 quarterback this week.
Now, I don't think anybody would have any qualms with me saying to sit Ryan Tannehill, Austin Davis, Derek Carr. They've all performed better in fantasy than Tom Brady. And Tom Brady is a sit this week against Kansas City. Not that the Chiefs' defense is this great unit that's going to shut Tom Brady down and leave him with no fantasy points again. But I just feel like there's other quarterbacks out there that you can start ahead of Tom Brady, guys like Phillip Rivers, Tony Romo. I think that those are going to be the types of quarterbacks that you can go with. And Tom Brady, he's in a funk right now. That offensive line's not doing him any favors. They don't have a guy stretching the field. This isn't a great week to start Tom Brady at Kansas City.
Totally agree. And then looking at running backs, obviously Ahmad Bradshaw's been great so far to start the season. You say he's going to keep rolling.
I mean, you look at what this Titans run defenses look like for the last 2 weeks. Here are the numbers: 321 rush yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. So give me any running back that's going up against the Titans.
Trent Richardson?
Oh, you're going to make me go there. You know, I think Ahmad Bradshaw is rock solid. You're going to start him. If you're in a pinch this week.
Don't do it.
And it's a bye week.
Just stick with Bradshaw.
There's a lot of running backs that are on bye this week. Trent Richardson is a good bye week replacement. There, I said it. I said something nice about Trent Richardson. You should feel good about that. Now, you say something nice about Chris Johnson.
No, because Chris Johnson's not a good fantasy running back. He's a great guy, but not somebody you're going to want to start in your fantasy lineup this week. Chris Ivory, actually the better of the 2 Jets running backs, as we've seen basically for the majority of the season so far. But Chris Johnson is going to face a tough matchup against Detroit. Detroit's done a very good job. Think about the running backs who they faced and who they've shut down. You go back last week, it was Eddie Lacy. They've already done a good job. They gave up a touchdown to Jonathan Stewart, touchdown to Rashad Jennings, but they contain them in terms of their rushing yards allowed. And I think Chris Johnson is losing significant playing time to Chris Ivory right now, losing time on passing down situations to Bilal Powell as well. So I don't want to trust Chris Johnson right now, even with the bye weeks. I know he was drafted probably as a 5th to 7th round pick, but that doesn't mean you have to start him week in, week out, and this is one of those weeks where you can continue to avoid.
And you know what? In week 15, he'll have a big revenge game against Tennessee. He'll play at Tennessee, but there's a big revenge game this week with a wide receiver, Steve Smith against the Carolina Panthers. Jamie, talk him up.
Oh, must-start guy this week. You know, he's been great so far to start the season. Really big surprise the way he's performed. 32 targets through 3 games. He's got almost 300 receiving yards and a touchdown so far on the season. 18 catches, doing a really good job stepping in as the #1 guy for Joe Flacco. And now Dennis Pitt is gone. So maybe Torrey Smith benefits, but we know Steve Smith wants to put on a show against his former team in the Panthers coming into his building. It'd be a much different story if it was in Carolina. You know he'd be fired up for that. But think about Deshaun Jackson last week and what he did against the Eagles. Similar situation for Steve Smith this week facing the Panthers. 13 years he spent there. They got rid of him this offseason. He's expecting fireworks, and I think fantasy owners should as well.
You know, in that same game, on that same team, you mentioned Torrey Smith. This is an easy sit to get away from here. Torrey Smith only has 6 catches this year, no more than 50 yards in a single game. Steve Smith is making Torrey Smith look like Kevin Walter, and Steve Smith is playing like Andre Johnson. And I only reference that because when Steve Smith came to Baltimore, he talked about how he'd be taking on the Kevin Walter role in Gary Kubiak's Houston offense. And he's playing like Andre Johnson. Torrey Smith is playing like a really crummy receiver. So sit crummy receivers, and Torrey Smith is one of them.
Yes, and a guy who's not a crummy tight end by any stretch of the imagination is Martellus Bennett. He's really gone off to another fantastic start, and you like him again this week.
I think you have to, and I don't even know how much the matchup even has to come into play here, because if you look at the Packers, they've been great against tight ends, but they haven't really taken anybody on yet. Martellus Bennett has a touchdown in every single game. One game he's got 2. Lots of yardage to go with that, and he's always started hot. So ride this wave with Martellus Bennett. He's a must-start tight end this week, Jamie. Jason Witten was supposed to be a guy who would be a week-to-week must-starter, too. He was drafted. Good value in fantasy drafts, but he just hasn't delivered.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be another tough week for him. I know there's some optimism maybe that the Cowboys come out, they throw the ball, throw with some success, and Witten starts to take a piece of that. But I think you see the way he's being used right now. It's a big reason why DeMarco Murray is running the way that he is, because Jason Witten is still helping as a blocker. Jason Garrett came out and said this is why Jason Witten is one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in football, because he can do it all. Unlike guys like, Jimmy Graham, Gronkowski, they're not known more for their blocking. Witten has proven to be a very good blocker. But forget about those other guys. In terms of Witten right now, tough matchup against the Saints. Faced them last year. They did a good job in containing him. I think that you're just going to get better production from other tight ends like a Martellus Bennett. Jason Witten is somebody you can get away from.
I'm going to put your feet to the fire here. Owen Daniels, who's the new guy in Baltimore with Dennis Pitt out, or Jason Witten?
I'd gamble on Daniels. I think there's just more upside there.
Interesting.
Yep.
I'd go Witten.
Understandable. Look,
low-end starter.
Yep, you don't want to make a roster move to carry 2 tight ends, and we understand that. And certainly we understand that you like the fantasy advice we give you, and hopefully you'll come back for more. So check us out Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Fantasy Football Today on CBSSports.com. We also have a post-game show at 8 o'clock Eastern, and we will definitely help you win your leagues, especially if you're missing some of these guys on a bye. So stay tuned, check us out, and we'll come back to you next week for more starts and sits.